I'm Savannah, this is Cleaver Cooking, and we are gonna make an asparagus mushroom galette. Woohoo! The very first thing you're gonna need is a crust of some sort. We're gonna use a pie dough, which I made the other day ahead of time. I won't tell anyone if you just wanna buy a pie dough or if you even wanna use puff pastry. It's all acceptable. It's all gonna be great. Galettes are just, they're just galettes. So, pie dough's gonna stay in the fridge because it needs to be cold. Otherwise, you don't get those layers, donkey. And then we are gonna start with a caramelized onion base because I got some onions knocking around. So get a pan hot, and we're just gonna knock through these here. See, and so if your pie dough doesn't have layers, at least the onions will have layers. And we're just gonna slice it up. You don't want them like paper thin, but fairly thin. Okay. Lunch pan's kind of hot, enough oil to lightly coat the bottom, you know the drill, and get the onions in. This pan's kind of small. It could caramelize all of these onions, but here's what I'm gonna see happening is that there's just less room for everything to be in contact with the heat, and so it's gonna take extra time. I did not think this through. And we ruined the plan of getting the pan hot there, but you know, sometimes sacrifices must be made. We'll just crank the heat on this one. It'll heat up pretty quick. You know what, we can use that later. Save a dish, haha. I'm just gonna stand here and wait until this gets hot. Okay, it's getting hot. A little more oil. And with the rest of ya. There, see, that's a more appropriate size pan. Let's break up the chunkies. A little bit of salt. So we want to get the initial saute going, right? Start the process. Get everything warmed up so that we don't have to wait an extra half an hour. Ah, and you hear that sound? Once everything is like, it's going, the water's starting to release, we see steam coming, we hear sizzling, then we're gonna put a lid on and turn it way the fuck down. Yeah. So down to like the lowest of the low heats. Now this pan is perfect for this because it has these little lips out the side for some of the steam to escape. Caramelization is all about trapping the steam and cooking it low and slow so that it gets tender and just kind of turns into a buttery mass. But you also need a little bit of air to be circulating so that the browning can actually start to happen. All right, so while your onions are caramelizing, we are gonna prep some mushrooms. Ooh. Some nice shiitakes. I think we got these from Hazeldell, just like a lovely local mushroom place that has a little farm stand. And we're just gonna slice these up. If they're a little tiny like this one, that doesn't even need to be chopped, it's gonna be fine. Just split them in half if you got some fun ones like that. We'll maybe cut them again. We'll maybe quarter these. That's kind of a hearty mushroom cap situation. And I didn't wash these. These are actually, they did a really thorough job cleaning them, which like, wow, thanks you guys for doing that work for me. If you've got some mushrooms that have like a bunch of dirt on them, if you have to rinse them, okay, fine. But really, I prefer to just like rub them with a damp towel to get the dirt off because they're already such a high water content and we want them to caramelize. And that's probably half, so that's like half a pound of shiitakes. Now, I've also got these chestnut mushrooms, or sometimes they're called cinnamon caps. And these little thin ones, you don't even have to slice at all. You can just leave them whole. If they're a little bit thicker, I'm just gonna try and split them right down the middle there. You could use any kind of mushroom you wanted on this, but I think some variety is really nice. Gives you contrasting textures, colors, flavors. And so with the onions, after like 5 minutes have passed, we're just gonna give them a stir. You can see the steam coming out. I just let the water run right back in off the lid. Perfect, just a little tiny bit of color on the bottom. So we wanna pull the bottom ones up and put the top ones down. The whole process of caramelizing onions can take like 45 minutes. It takes a while. You can't rush it. It's gotta do its thing. Okay, does this look like it belongs in a Dr. Seuss book or what? That looks pretty good. That's probably like a pound, maybe a little over. It doesn't have to be precise. So now we're gonna prep the asparagus. And you could just take each stalk and bend it until it snaps naturally. Or you can just do this. Ah, done. Whatever's clever. Just hang on to that. And so now we're just gonna wait for these onions to caramelize. Just stir in every like 10 to 15 minutes. If you open the lid and everything's turning brown and crunchy, turn it down. Maybe add a smidge of water at the bottom. Let it cool off for a minute. If you open the lid and nothing's really happening, probably turn it up. And just keep doing that, stirring occasionally for like 45 minutes. Okay, let's check in with the onions. Some time has passed, probably like half an hour. I wasn't really keeping close track. Yay, they're getting nice and soft. Been stirring them every 10 minutes or so. It looks kind of like sauerkraut. Right now, it's pretty sweet. I tasted them just a few minutes ago. Sweet, it's getting caramely. You could technically stop here, but I want to take them a little bit further. So we're just gonna let these keep going while we finish the rest of our filling. And then we're just gonna get this saute pan hot for the shrooms. All right, lunch pan's hot. Oil. Let that heat up for just a second, and then we are just gonna dump all these mushrooms in. And we're not trying to cook these mushrooms all the way down. I wanted to cook them about halfway, because then they're gonna go in the oven with the whole galette. Little bit more oil. Don't be shy. Salt. Some pepper. Yeah, and you wanna hear that saute right away. That's excellent. Let's do a little bit of chili flakes. A little bit of heat. And I've got this rosemary knocking around in the fridge, and I don't really want to bite down on some rosemary in the galette itself, but I think I'm just gonna throw a couple of sprigs in there to help infuse as it sautés. You know, why not? So we got it going, just give it a little toss. Yeah, maybe a little more oil. That one's kind of big. That one too. Yeah, look at that. That's not gonna be, What was I thinking? These are gonna take a bit of oil, and that's okay. We're not making a galette to be healthy here. Just give them what they want. Stir the onions. Seeing more of that good brown caramelization. Be sure and scrape the bottom. Get all those good bits up. So mushrooms are like primarily water, and what we're looking for is we want them to release some of their water, and then we should be in a pretty good spot. We're gonna let the water release, we're gonna let the water simmer off, then we'll call it a day. It's not there yet, not even close. That was primarily a raw mushroomitis state, but it's really not that bad. A little more salt. Let's just pick through our asparagus here while we're waiting on that to happen. Some fool just put the rubber band right around the little tops here, and now we've got some that are shriveled and sad. So most of these look like they're pretty good size to just pop into the oven raw on their own. But if you got any big suckers like this one, just split it right down the middle, which is not easy to do when the asparagus kind of waves. It's got a little scoliosis going on. Yeah, just put a little cut side down there. So we're getting some nice caramelization on the mushrooms. I dropped the heat just a little bit so that we can give it the water a chance to release. We might not even need all this asparagus, like all of it might not fit, but I'm kind of just committed now. I don't want to leave like one big stalk that I didn't split. That would just be awkward. Oh God. Pepper. I hate it when you have to sneeze and it doesn't happen. It's so disappointing. Just a big letdown. But that's the year of 2020, isn't it? Big old letdown. Oh, see, and the mushrooms spilled. Everything's going wrong. Do you eat more floor mushrooms? Oh, it's very hot. All right, let's get ourselves organized here. This is a disgrace. So they're kind of getting brown and crispy. They haven't released their water yet, which tells me I just probably had the heat a little too high right off the bat. So what I'm gonna do, knock that heat all the way down to low, pop this on, and just let them steam for a minute, which will help tenderize them. And like shiitake and the cinnamon caps don't have quite as much water as if you were using like cremini or something of that nature. So So those look pretty good to me. I think we're gonna stop it there. I'm just gonna shut off the heat. And we've got some of this good brown fond stuck to the bottom of the pan there. So what I'm gonna do, with no more heat, we're just gonna put the lid on, trap a little bit more of that steam, and then the collected water, we should be able to scrape the fond off the bottom. And let's check on the mushrooms. There we go. Yeah, that's perfect. They're kind of tender when I squeeze them, but they've still, like, they're not quite done yet. Like halfway. So let's shut the heat off on those as well. And now we just want to let the onions and the mushrooms cool down because you don't want to put something screaming hot onto your pastry dough. So while that cools, let's make the filling. So I've got like 4 ounces of cream cheese here. You really probably are gonna need 8 for the size of the galette that we're doing, but I got a little hungry earlier in the week and had some cream cheese. So this has been out softening for a few hours. If it's not quite where you want it, you can just, I'm kidding, don't do that. That'd be gross, not like eating shit off the floor. So I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna pop it in the microwave for like, I don't know, until it's soft and I can like beat it with a fork. Okay, we're gonna warm this up. Kind of forgot about it there for a minute. Okay, so to that, well here, we'll just use the same spoon all around. It's all gonna go to the same place. Doesn't really matter. So that's not gonna be enough. So I've got some ricotta cheese here knocking around, then we're just gonna add that. Whatever you got really. You could do a cream sauce, you could do goat cheese, and that would be real fancy. You know, just like, galettes are so personal. You can do whatever you want with them. And now we just want to mix this up and then we want to flavor it somehow. Like the first time I made this galette, I think I had some radish microgreens that were about to go bad. And so I just chopped some of those up and threw it in there. You can do a little garlic, a little chopped onion. I've got some thyme, so we're gonna do that. Just gonna take this thyme, and that's probably, yeah, there's not hardly any stem there. There we go, everybody in. You could chop up the thyme, but I already got rid of my knife, so I'm not going to. Stir it up, little bit of salt. No. Everybody off. I like it. Let's keep it. Just set that to the side. Pie dough. And let's just check in with the onions. Oh, I got cream cheese all over my, I have to get a second spoon. Yeah, so the residual water from the steam built up in there is letting me pull all that good stuff off the bottom. Exactly what we want. All right, it's pie dough time. You just need like a pie dough for like the bottom of a pie. That didn't make any sense. So you just need enough dough to make like the equivalent of a 9-inch pie. A little flour if you need it. We might not. This pie dough I actually made while I was teaching 9, 10-year-old girls how to make galettes in a Zoom class. And let me tell you, it was an experience. But they all got a galette done. Most of them looked like they'd been sat on, but the kids were happy. So I like to rotate my pie dough so that A, it doesn't stick, and B, it gives you a more uniform situation. Now I actually want this to be a rectangle. So now we're gonna say, okay, I think we're looking a little longer this way, so let's start making it the shape that we want. With the galette, it does not have to be perfect. It's literally the thing you make when you're too lazy to make a pie, but you still want to make something impressive. Oh dear, I've got a crease. Not that. And don't worry if your pie dough is giving you a little bit more trouble than this. Again, my video on pie dough has all the tips and tricks, but I think this one just was there for when I taught those 9 kids how to make a galette, and it knows not to mess with me. If I can't be taken down by a bunch of little girls, this pie dough isn't gonna do it. Okay, so with the galette, especially in the middle, you wanna make sure you get it thin enough. It should be barely thicker than a quarter. If your dough's too thick, it's gonna take forever to cook. It's not gonna be done. It'll be still kind of raw in the center and everything else will be too done and it's gonna be really sad. So just keep rolling. So here I'm just gonna use, well, it's probably not the best idea, but I'm gonna stretch the dough a little bit. It's kind of a gluppy sound, huh? This is the ugly side. It has all the imprints of the table on it. Let's not do that. A thing of beauty. That'll work. Okay, so now One of the biggest mistakes I've made over and over again when making a galette is I get my dough all rolled out, I get all the filling in here, and then I go, oh shit, I have to move this onto a pie pan. So get your pie pan. And by pie pan, I mean sheet pan. A lot of galettes you'll see will be circular in shape, but because of the asparagus, we're gonna do a rectangle. So now, the coolest trick of all time, except you know what, those 10-year-olds were not impressed. Such savages. Unroll it. What's that? It's okay if it flops over the edges a little bit. Just try and get it. You know what? I'm just gonna do that. All right, get the wrinkles out. And if at any point working with your pie dough, it starts to become really warm and you feel like butter's coming off on your hands, stick that whole dough at whatever stage it's at into the freezer for a few minutes to chill back down. Otherwise, it's not gonna be a good time. Okay, so let's get our cheese mixture on here. And again, nothing hot directly onto the pie dough, please. So you wanna leave yourself like an inch of dough at the edges. And you just want like a layer of sauce equivalent to what you would put on a pizza. So this is maybe a bit heavy. You know, you don't wanna bog it down. So now we've got this nice layer. The onions are still fairly warm, but they're not screaming hot. So here we go with the caramelized onions. And you could absolutely caramelize your onions like up to a week ahead of time and just have them in the fridge, and that would way cut down on the prep time for this recipe. Just do your best to get some onion in all the areas. Unless there's someone you really don't like, you're gonna be serving it to, and then you can leave a whole spot blank and give that one to them. Excellent. Mushrooms, oops. Get rid of the rosemary. Yeah, see, I went like just a little over, and we could have definitely got by with a pound instead of all the rest of this. But we'll put it in. Oh, yes, baby. Last but not least, let's get our little asparagus babies over here. You can do whatever design you want with these. Get crazy or keep it super rustic and simple. Whatever you're feeling. I think let's do some short ones and some tall ones. Let's build some height and depth and direction and all that good shit. Okay, I think that'll do. So now, we are just gonna take the crust of the galette, and you can kind of pleat it, fold it, get your ass back in there. Fold it up and over the edges. Oh yeah, that is gonna be real nice. Okay, so we didn't use quite all that asparagus. See, this is the part where if you hadn't got it onto the parchment paper, you're like, fuck, you gotta call 3 people over, and then all of you over here with spatulas like 1, 2, and it's, you know, cheap thrills, if nothing else. Cheap thrills. There we go. So now we're gonna do a couple things before we get this in the oven. Oil in this bowl, make a little egg wash over here. Okay, just a titch of water, milk, cream, whatever you got. Beat that in to make your egg wash. Oil first. Yep. Be sure and get that all over your counter, your kitchen, you know, splatter oil everywhere. And I'm just gonna brush the asparagus so that we get some nice caramelization. Egg wash on the crust only. Now, if this was a sweet galette, you would sprinkle raw sugar all over the crust and it would be really sparkly when it comes out. And we've seasoned everything in layers except for the asparagus, so we wanna be cautious, but I'm just gonna do a bit of flake salt on the edges for a similar effect. If you have nothing else in your life to make you feel fancy, spend $10 on some flake salt. It's just fancy whenever you need it. We're gonna throw this into the freezer for like 10 to 15 minutes just to hold its form a little bit, and then it's gonna go into a 375-degree oven for like 45 minutes until the inside is bubbly, the crust is golden brown, and when you lift it up and tap the bottom, it's cooked all the way through. Woohoo, she done. Look at that. That's gorgeous. This took closer to an hour than 45 minutes, but I always like to underestimate the time because it totally depends on your oven and the size of whatever you're baking. And I live at like 5,000 feet, so that has an effect as well. All right, y'all, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, hit the like and subscribe button for me. It really helps out the channel, and I appreciate y'all. Enjoy.